Hello and welcome to Nerd Alert's first show of the spring semester. I'm your host, Michael Leith, and I'll be leading you through the world of esports and related news in the streaming and gaming industry. We'll also have an update on a variety of things in entertainment today. Starting off, we'll have Joe Vinzel and Logan Lepiscopo here with Woo Tunes to give you a quick music update right here on Nerd Alert.
What's up, Waynesburg, and welcome to our first edition of Woo Tunes, a mini segment here on Nerd Alert. I'm joined by my good pal, Logan Lepiscopo. We're going to give you the rundown on everything music. And Logan, big thing out of music right now, pushing P. If you're not pushing P, you're not doing it right, apparently. You know,
it's crazy how like one song from an album can just kind of take things over. I don't know if everybody's heard of it, but pushing P is like this thing where if you do one thing, you're pushing P, but if you do something else, you're not.
You're not P. It's coming from Gunna's new album, new song off that album, Pushin' P with Future and Young Thug. Big phenomenon in that scenario, and it's blown up completely, and everybody's using P. If you're not, like I said, if you're not P, you're not messing with Gunna, bro.
It's like if you study for an exam, that's pushing P. You're putting in that hard work. But
right.
If you're like putting it off, not studying, just like whatever I get. That's not P at all. Not P at all.
Not P.
No.
But, definitely everybody that listens, I should say watches this show is definitely P. And we're going to move from Gunna right to a legend in XXXTentacion. New movie coming out this summer, the documentary, and what a life that man lived when he was alive, especially with the music scene.
Yeah, it's crazy how big of an impact he made with the little bit of time he was here on Earth. It's very unfortunate the way he passed and that he passed so soon, but his impacts left a huge impact on the industry, fans, everything. You still see artists, Ski Master, Slump God, Juice WRLD. Unfortunately, he passed as well, but those kind of guys continue to pay homage to him, and it's just amazing to come out with this documentary about him.
Absolutely. Coming this summer, especially, XXXTentacion. We're going to move to another deceased artist, Juice WRLD, coming out with his new single that was unreleased for so long, but definitely leaked. A bunch of Juice WRLD fans know it. Cigarettes is now on streaming platforms. One of my favorite songs by him.
It's a great song. It was around TikTok for quite some time, just a little bit snippet from the song, but it's nice to see that it's fully out, and hopefully we see some more post-death music come out.
Absolutely. I have about half of those streams on that song. And last thing, Logan, we're going to talk about Donda 2 coming out later this month, February 22nd, 2022 is the release date. Kanye, a little bit unreliable, but we'll see what's happening. Future executive producing this one.
I'm really excited. I thought Donda itself was already a great album. Donda 2 coming out. It's supposed to come out February 22nd of this year. We'll see. Like you said, Kanye's very unreliable with that, but I'm very excited for the album. Hopefully we see some features that we missed out on in the last album.
And I was going to say, who you want to see on it?
I'd love to see Kid Cudi get more into it, and definitely Jay-Z. We all know the old traditional Kanye, Jay-Z. I'd love to see them bring something back together.
Absolutely. Definitely Future. He's executive producing this album. Definitely want to see some Future. And another one, Pop Smoke. He was on the last Donda, just a little bit of an interlude, but maybe we can get a Future for him, and maybe we'll see something happen.
Let's see.
And that's going to do it for this segment of Woo Tunes. Stay tuned for more Woo Tunes.
Video games, long considered nothing more than a hobby to be enjoyed by teenagers. Today, however, it is a billion-dollar industry with entire news outlets dedicated to gaming coverage, and many people have been able to launch a career off of broadcasting their gameplay to the world. However, one of the biggest and most profitable developments has been the emergence of esports, whether at the professional or collegiate level. I'm joined today by my panel of Jay Hawk and Darian Allensworth here. Darian, let's start with you. What's the current spot of esports within the NCAA?
So right now, as far as the esports scene, it's just getting bigger and bigger. More schools are picking it up as time goes on, just because it's gaining more publicity, whether it's through the college scene or the professional scene or even just like the general public. As far as how big it's gonna get in the college scene, I mean, with more games gaining popularity, and more games coming out and more games just being more competitive, it's just going to continue growing and expanding into more and more colleges.
All right, so now we're going to pivot more to the professional side of things for now. It's back to you, Darren, but also you, Jayhawk. For successful professional esports teams, what are they doing correctly?
First of all, a lot of them are advertising what they play through streaming services. A lot of the big gamers who are professionals, they stream what they play, whether it's through Twitch, YouTube, and there's other streaming services other than those that I can't think of off the top of my head. But they're basically advertising what they play through those, and a lot of people watch them through their streaming services.
And you, Jay?
Well, most of the pros are doing right is branding and selecting their audience correctly. So branding is of course huge because you want people to want to like you. So your outward appearance is very important in that matter. And additionally, you have to find your niche and stick with it to a certain degree. Some people enjoy shooters more, others enjoy platformers, speedrunners, and another entire sub-community with their own avid fans. And so you have to make sure that you're branding to the correct people and you're branding well. And I think professionals, of course, have done that very well, or else they wouldn't be where they are.
So now we're going to go back to college. With professional esports getting bigger and bigger, and colleges kind of new to the scene, trying to break into it. What can college teams learn from the professionals that are doing it? I'll start with you again, Darian.
I think a lot of, kind of what Jay said, branding, and kind of from what I said when we were talking about what pros are doing, right, is advertising. A lot of we're getting a lot of high schools picking up esports because of how big it's getting. So I think if colleges advertise it more, show, hey, we know you guys like this stuff, come to our school so you can enjoy it even after your high school career, and continue it, and then even go pro at it if you want that for your future. A lot of kids will definitely start coming to your school. Definitely will increase the publicity as far as if people are going to come to your school or not. Because we've seen it. Like a lot of students, if they're big in a sport, if they have a passion in it, they're going to pursue it after high school. So definitely advertise, hey, we're gonna do this. We know you guys like it. Just come to our school because we'll have it.
So Jay, you work in higher ed. What can college teams learn from the pro side of esports?
I'm definitely going to reiterate branding because a couple of people have done it well, and it looks really good when you do it well. Additionally, the sense of community behind gaming is a hard thing to capture, and so with college sports like basketball or baseball, you say basketball or baseball, and everyone knows what you're talking about. Meanwhile, with gaming, you really have to try a bit harder to make sure that you're hitting people with the content they want to see, and it has to be decent enough content. So you need to get your players to be good enough, and you need to advertise the program a lot, because without an advertising for a community, you're losing out on the support of a sports program, because it is still sports at the end of the day. E-sports on a computer, but it's still a sports team, and these are still students that are playing to win against other colleges. So you have to make sure you're giving it the credit it's due as a legitimate sport, in my opinion.
That's a good segue into my next question. Darren, you're a sports broadcasting major. What can esports learn from the NCAA's more prominent athletic programs?
I feel like a lot of it is. I feel like a lot of it is going to come down to announcing, being able to announce the game. Just like it goes with any other sport, as an announcer, you need to have as much information as possible to be able to prepare with. So, like you need to know the rules. You need to know the players. You need to just know a lot about what you're talking about, just to give the viewers, especially with some of these games, there's a lot more rules in games than there is in just regular sports such as basketball and football. Don't get me wrong; those can be complicated sports, but I feel like esports, each video game almost comes with its own set of rules. Not even getting into specific circumstances for some games. So it's definitely learning the rules and being able to broadcast it and give the viewers as much information as possible so they can learn the game as you broadcast it to your viewers.
Sure. So Jay, what games do you think are better suited for college esports teams going forward?
I actually like a couple of big options right now. Rocket League is super popular, and that's a great one because soccer's been around and you understand that pretty easily. It's a ball, you put it in the goal, you get a point, confetti goes off. But it's difficult with some of your more complicated games where sight lines are important. So games like Rocket League where you have basic team colors and you can announce, hey, orange team or blue team has the ball, they're moving here. Other games like Overwatch, whenever they went to Overwatch League, they had a home and away team. Again, great color coordination because even if you don't know all the characters, because there's over 25 characters at this point, I believe, you can at least say, hey, the home team in white is pushing up around this lane and they're doing this well, and you can see that yellow is falling back and they're kind of losing some players. And as you need to make sure you can define it simply and quickly, because if you can't keep up with the action, then you just don't care about the sport. So games like Overwatch have been well for the color coordination. Games like Hearthstone is a card game. It can work well as well, but the issue there is, again, if you're unfamiliar with the card game and you don't understand building a deck, the mechanics behind it, if you want to rush down deck versus a defensive one, or you want to build up over time, a scaling kind of idea, it's very difficult to translate these ideas into something easy enough for a viewer to digest. So I'm liking Rocket League a lot for this. Overwatch is doing really well. League of Legends and Dota, both games that are pretty slow-paced, top-down view. You have action scenes, but you can still at least generally announce the game and follow the gameplay and say, all right, this position is attempting to do this. You can watch it and see if it goes wrong. Even if you don't understand all the animations and somebody died and there's 30 Bazinga points, you're okay because you can get a general sense for these kinds of games.
I'm going to give that same question to you, Darian. What games are going to be best for college esports to really get behind?
I'm going to agree with Jayhawk on those the games he said. I mean, I think as for now, like, try to keep it simpler before getting into the more complicated games. Like he said, Hearthstone. So it's about knowing the specifics as far as building decks or anything like that. And even like just playing it, just to play it, like not for a score or whatever. It can be hard because in order to kind of stay up with what's good and what's not, you kind of have to pay for it. You kind of have to be able to have the money to be able to buy card packs in order to stay up in tempo with the game. So it's kind of harder for people to get into something like that when they're brand new, opposed to whenever the first game first started and you had so many resources from that. I think as far as League and Dota, both games are extremely similar, but one is definitely more simpler than the other. As far as games like that, you have to learn specific mechanics, way specific characters work, archetypes for characters and roles and positions. So I mean, if like those games can get pretty complicated, but if you want something simple, something like Rocket League, Super Smash Brothers is a game that's been getting pretty popular for a while, since the first Super Smash Bros. And it's not really that hard to learn. I mean, it's a fighter v fighter game. You learn a couple basic moves for a character, and you get good at the character. You can pretty much take on whoever as long as you're good with one character. So Super Smash Bros. I think is definitely another good game to get started on.
And Darren, you briefly touched on that there's some challenges that colleges have in developing an esports program. What are some of the big challenges you think that these schools are going to have, and what do they need to do to overcome it?
I think probably the biggest, I think, as far as challenges when it comes to esports is the publicity. Finding the crowd, the people, the students who want to play it, not just as a hobby, but or maybe I shouldn't even say not just for hobby, but like want to actually put their time into getting good at the game. Because, I mean, while there are some, I will say for myself, who do take games seriously, there are others who just see it as a game and not important. They don't see it as like they would see football or baseball or soccer. So I think the biggest is them just finding their crowd, and then being able to show like, hey, it may not be it might not be like the other sports where you're physically training for soccer or baseball, but hey, this is still important. This still takes time, and there is skill involved with getting good at the games. And if you're up for the challenge, then join us. Why not?
All right, Jay, we'll wrap things up with this question. What can a successful esports program bring to a campus community?
Successful in esports, you have to do, I'm going to go back to publicity again, because you have to be able to reach out to people and you have to get people involved. Any program of any sort needs outreach. It needs to do it correctly. So it's going to be very difficult in that aspect, but a successful one would probably advertise it a lot and advertise it to everybody, because you really, with football or basketball, it's kind of easier to tell, but with gaming, if you're into a game, you don't necessarily talk about it all the time, but you still enjoy gaming. Meanwhile, basketball or football is topics that you can talk about at a round table with 80 of your buddies and everybody can go on for a while. It's kind of a hidden crowd that you have to look for. So I'd say broadcast it loud, wide, and clear. Tell people, look, we have our new team. We would love for you guys to come support them. We'd love you to come try out for it. And even if you're not good enough to try out and make the team, you can come practice and get better and be on the team, because Darian's absolutely right. Some of these games you can dump hundreds of hours into and still be improving by hour 800. And you're still learning new techniques and you're getting just a little bit better every single time. So it's very important to broadcast the very competitive aspect that this will have. But publicity, I think, will be the biggest challenge. And then beyond that, a successful esports program should definitely work on its game palette. It needs to make sure that it's focusing correctly on what games it wants to play. Some universities or colleges will have a very wide spread of games to play. You can pick from Overwatch or Valorant or Counter-Strike or Rainbow Six Siege or another game. Meanwhile, other colleges will start with a reduced number of teams, and it's actually a pretty good idea, because if you don't have an assistant coach, this is actually another difficulty that they'll have, is you need coaches for each of these games. So as long as you kind of stick to your lane in a way of making sure you have somebody that knows the game you're trying to get students better at and knows the game well enough that they can teach people, because that again is a skill in and of itself, being able to translate what you've done to other people. Very difficult. I did not appreciate it until I started working here recently.
Well, guys, that's really interesting stuff for sure. When we come back, we'll have an update and discussion about the business side of gaming. But first, here's Aaron Lang with your Movie Minute.
Welcome back to Nerd Alert. Now it's time for our Marvel Movie Minute. Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is definitely off to an interesting start, and in 2021, fans saw a lot of action. Back in the summer and early fall, Marvel released Black Widow and Shang-Chi Legend of the Ten Rings. However, within just the last 2 months, we've also gotten Eternals and Spider-Man No Way Home. Heads up, there might be some spoilers ahead. Eternals was released in early November and had introduced probably the greatest number of new characters at one time. It's about a group of heroes that have been around since the early years of mankind. Following the universal blip, the Eternals step back into the light to protect the people of Earth from a re-emerging threat. But as it turns out, that threat might not be their biggest problem. In fact, it might be a bit closer than they realize. Spider-Man No Way Home swung into theaters the week before Christmas. The movie picks up right where Far From Home left off, with headlines revealing that Peter Parker is Spider-Man and that he killed Mysterio. Here we saw a lot of familiar faces from the Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield movies, both on the villain and the hero sides. Spider-Man faces some of his toughest challenges yet, challenges that are going to change his life forever. In typical Marvel fashion, the end credit scenes in both films give clues into what's coming up next in the MCU. At the end of Eternals, we get some hints of some new characters who have the potential to have a big impact on the Marvel world. From Spider-Man No Way Home, we got the new Doctor Strange trailer. Looks like the Sorcerer Supreme is teaming up with the Scarlet Witch, and it looks like the multiverse is going to be a crazy ride. So far, I think Phase 4 is looking pretty promising. Avengers Endgame was a big turning point within the MCU. We saw a lot of familiar characters leave, but now it's time for new characters to make their way into the cast of heroes. Marvel has started off strong with the first 4 films, and their Disney Plus series have gained a lot of attention as well. I think the Avengers developing roster has a lot of potential for some great action and stories. At the same time, I think we could be seeing some pretty dangerous villains upcoming as well. Throughout the rest of 2022, we look forward to 3 new movies coming to theaters. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness comes out in theaters March 25th, followed by Thor: Love and Thunder in July, and Black Panther: Wakanda Forever in November. Not to mention the mini-series coming to Disney Plus throughout the year. Be sure to keep an eye out for what comes next in the MCU. That's all for this Movie Minute, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more Nerd Alert.
NFTs have become a hot topic in the gaming community with the rise of cryptocurrency, and now some studios are even deciding to make their own. I'm just going to start off with Jay just to get some brief context into NFTs. Jay, what's an NFT?
NFT stands for non-fungible token. The idea behind it being you can finally own a digital good, because before this, of course, if you have an image on the internet, you right-click and save as, and it's your image now. Congratulations. NFTs is that non-fungible token. Very important because that token has a authentication process, and now you can own a work of art on the digital world. Never been able to be done before. And companies are starting to use it because you can now move this from one game to another. Because if you own an NFT that, for instance, Ubisoft uses them, I believe in Rainbow Six coming up, you're going to have a helmet mark going across the top with a specific tag. So now you could, in theory, transfer this between Rainbow Six Siege, Wildlands, and Ghost Recon or something. Any games that would support this technology, you can start having permanent items that you could follow around and kind of build a personality for yourself. Would be the golden age of NFTs.
So Darian, with that explanation in mind, where does this leave the gaming community?
I feel like it's definitely something the gaming community can get around. I feel like any gamer who's a big fan of like just grinding out games has always found it fun to collect things throughout a game. Now you're basically doing it in real life and just keeping it within the game, like just creating a collection of things that you can be proud of, that you can show off. So I think it'll definitely, the gaming community will definitely get around NFTs. I don't see why they wouldn't.
Sure. So just with these NFTs, what's the future for them? You mentioned some companies are going to start incorporating them into the games. Mm-hmm. Where do you think they can go with it from here?
Well, there's one publisher called Team 17 that recently announced that they were hoping to do NFTs on a small indie scale. This is an indie company, and this is the publisher again. The 2 developers that worked for the publisher immediately took to the internet and spoke out against the idea very, very strongly. They were not thrilled with the idea at all. They said that they didn't support the notion. They saw no use of it in the gaming industry. This was the devs of Overcooked and Going Under, if you've played either of them. But they spoke out very quickly saying this is a horrible idea. Meanwhile, like I said, with Ubisoft and some of these other companies, if you can get it on a big enough scale, players want to look good. This has been true since Counter-Strike or Team Fortress 2. You can buy hats, you can buy weapon skins. So NFTs could in theory have a very strong hold on gaming, but so far we're seeing very out of touch corporate offices making the decisions on where to implement these, and I think it's very clear right now they do not know where they should be implemented at all. So we're getting a very rough start of NFTs in the gaming industry, at least. Of course, NFTs just, you can have an NFT as your Twitter bio now. You can upload that, but for the gaming industry specifically, we're off to a rough start, and I'm hoping that we'd see some increase. But I think the community will have to shape that with their own feedback. We will have to see the community actually rise up and tell people, you know what, maybe not this thing. Let's try, instead of just a helmet that costs $800 or whatever with a little tag, no, I want a better gun, or I want this certain skin. So NFTs have a strong possibility in the future, but very, very ill start.
And that's definitely interesting, talk about Twitter. And it's really interesting to see who's getting that hex around their image on Twitter, to see who has the NFT and who doesn't. It's one of those internet trends that's it's really interesting to watch. But now let's kind of transition away from crypto now into some of the big mergers that are going on. The two big ones obviously are Microsoft purchasing Activision Blizzard, and then Sony recently just purchased Bungie. Let's start off with the big one, Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard for $70 billion. Darian, how is this going to impact the industry? Because obviously these are two massive companies all coming under one roof now.
I think we'll start at what you just said, $70 billion. I mean, these industries, they make a lot of money from the games. And Activision Blizzard, I mean, obviously they were under some big controversies, let's just say, earlier on. But first of all, I mean, just with the games that come with it, it's going to be huge for Microsoft, and it's good to see. We're going to see what's going to happen with some of those games. Are they going to be able to make them exclusives for Xbox? I think that would be really huge, because a lot of those games that have been played, that have came from Activision Blizzard, both PlayStation and Xbox users have, and we'll say PC players as well, have enjoyed those games a lot. So it's going to be big and important to see what their next decisions with the games that come out from the company, what Microsoft does with it. I think it's gonna send shockwaves, I think, in the gaming community.
Darian, I'm glad you gave us PC gamers some love there. It's really interesting. But now, Jay, Sony bought Bungie for $3.6 billion, and that might seem like small change compared to the $70 billion figure that Microsoft put up, but it's still a huge deal. Where do you think that is going to leave Bungie, and even just Sony in general, as the two, Microsoft and Sony, kind of fight for the prominent position in the gaming community?
I think one of the most interesting things about that anyway is Activision Blizzard got Bungie, and then that was a Battle.net exclusive. You could only go through Blizzard's launcher. And then Bungie eventually got off of that a little bit and got to break the contract. And now going to Sony, we're going to see, I don't know if we're going to see more or less exclusivity, because Bungie's been a very wide community since the first game on Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. No, they didn't have PC. No crossplay compatible, but it was still a large thing. Bringing it to PC with Destiny 2, again, a big deal. I'm not sure, though. Destiny 2 has had a lot of changes in its roadmap and development from the original base game. Parts of it are being pulled out now, and other DLCs are being brought in expansions. So I'm very interested, frankly, to see what Sony's going to do with this, because I couldn't say.
Sure. Well, it's a big deal, and we know more is coming. The CEO and president of PlayStation, Jim Ryan, he's already said in the press release that they have more plans on the way and they're getting things going. But that's all the time we have, unfortunately. But before we end, we go to Spencer Viteri with a gaming update.
I'm Spencer Viteri, and this is Level Up. Today, we'll talk the latest gaming news, including Call of Duty, Vanguard, Dying Light 2, and GTA 6. Dying Light 2 is the latest game to grace gamers. It came out on February 4th and is the sequel to Dying Light, and man was I excited for the release of this game. I played the first Dying Light and beat it in about a week, and I have waited 7 whole years for the second Dying Light to come out. With the release 7 years after the first Dying Light, the game brings a lot more advanced setting. The game also includes a larger map filled with new characters and new enemies. The biggest feature is Dying Light 2 is the cross-platform feature, allowing you to play with your friends on different consoles. The other game that people are waiting for is GTA 6, and honestly, I don't know if this game is ever going to come out because of how long it has been postponed and prolonged. And I mean this is the game people want. After GTA 5 blew up, people automatically assumed that there would be a 6th. And people were right, but after all these years, there has been minimal talk about when it's coming out. I'm going to make a statement right now, though. When this game comes out, it will break every record in gaming history, and I believe it will be the only game people will talk about for the next year. Call of Duty Season 1 for Vanguard and Warzone Pacific has recently been postponed due to December 8th, but some of the upcoming weapons and operator skins have apparently leaked from promotional art in PlayStation's database. Just like Modern Warfare and Black Ops Cold War's post-launch content, Call of Duty Vanguard is set to bring new weapons, operator skins, a new battle pass, and more with seasonal updates. Vanguard's Season 1 is highly anticipated for Warzone, as this first update will bring the brand new Caldera map and the Ricochet anti-cheat system. According to Twitter account Size PlayStation, Sony's database reveals that the Vanguard Season 1 update has now been added, and the account claims the update size is 40.7 gigabytes on PlayStation 4. From the image shared in the tweet, we can see 3 new operators and other weapons on an island setting that fits the previously revealed promo images of Warzone Pacific's Caldera map. Other leakers are suggesting 2 weapons in the image are the Wellgun and the M1944 Hyde carbine submachine guns, but it's possible these are cosmetic variants of other weapons or some already existing in Vanguard. Leaks should always be taken with a grain of salt, and confirmed content details will likely arrive with an official roadmap closer to the Season 1 start time. In other Call of Duty news, Warzone players can experience the Operation Flashback, the limited time event which brings back features from previous seasons of Modern Warfare and Black Ops Cold War. This is the first of 3 events to give Verdansk a final farewell before the new Caldera map arrives. This has been Level Up on Nerd Alert.
Unfortunately, that's all the time we have today. For all of us here at Nerd Alert, thank you for joining us. You can catch all of our episodes on YouTube at WCTV Waynesburg University. Until next time, this has been Nerd Alert on WCTV.
This has been a production of Waynesburg Community Television.